Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. This one goes out to all of you who requested a closer look at the Elisa Lam case.
It's a fascinating one.
It really is. Back in 2013, Elisa Lam, a 21-year-old student from Canada, was found dead in a water tank.
On the roof of the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
a pretty infamous location.
It has a reputation.
It does. So her death was ultimately ruled accidental.
Drowning.
Drowning, right. But there were so many strange details.
The circumstances surrounding her death they're bizarre.
It's one of those cases that I think really captures the imagination. You have the infamous elevator video,
Right, everyone's seen that.
the location of her body, the hotel itself. I mean, it's all very intriguing, right?
Absolutely.
So today, we're going to be using the Wikipedia article about Elisa's death as our primary source.
Excellent.
So we're going to try to unpack, I guess, the known facts. We'll explore the theories, and we'll see what questions I think we're all left with at the end of this. What do you think? Ready to dive in?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, great. So to understand this case, I think we need to start with Elisa herself. Who was she? She was a student, right?
At the University of British Columbia.
The daughter of immigrants from Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And she kept a blog.
A pretty active blog. And in her post, she discussed her struggles with bipolar disorder and depression.
And those are really important details.
Very important in this case, yeah.
So her family has mentioned that she wasn't always, the best about taking her medication.
Consistently, yeah.
And, I mean, that's something that obviously raises questions about her mental state, leading up to her disappearance.
Right. And just to kind of put a little clinical spin on that, one of the medications that Elisa was prescribed was lamotrigine. It's a mood stabilizer often used to treat bipolar disorder, and it's important for regulating mood swings. It's important for preventing these episodes of either mania or depression.
And so imagine this, Elisa is on this solo trip across America. She's taken Amtrak and bus routes. She visited the San Diego Zoo, I believe.
Yeah.
So on the surface, she seems like any other young woman, out on an adventure.
Yeah.
But you have this potential undercurrent of, a struggle going on.
Yeah.
And it might not be apparent, to the people that she interacted with along the way.
This internal struggle that she's dealing with.
Right. So she arrives in L.A. on January 26th, checks into the Cecil Hotel. And again, this hotel has a pretty dark history. A lot of people are familiar with it.
Oh, yeah. Notorious, maybe.
Yeah, for all the wrong reasons, unfortunately. And then on January 31st, she vanishes.
Just like that. Gone.
Gone. And up until that point, she had been in daily contact with her parents back in Canada. And then suddenly the calls stop.
Radio silence.
And so they report her missing. They fly to L.A., and the search begins.
It's a parent's worst nightmare.
Absolutely. And in those initial days, those early days of the investigation, it was really more questions than answers.
Yeah.
Hotel staff, they remembered seeing Elisa, alone, acting normally. There was nothing unusual about her behavior that stood out to them.
There's even an account from the manager of a local bookstore who described her as outgoing, lively, and friendly when she bought gifts for her family.
It's just normal.
Just normal, yeah.
A normal young woman.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the police searched her room. They brought in dogs to go through the entire building, even checked the rooftop, but they found nothing. Absolutely no trace of Elisa.
And then a couple of weeks later, on February 13th, the LAPD released a piece of evidence that changed the whole trajectory of the case.
Oh, yeah.
The elevator security footage?
Oh, that video is...
Chilling.
It's chilling.
It is.
Yeah. It's one of those things. Once you see it,
Yeah.
it's hard to forget. I remember the first time I saw that footage. I mean, just chills.
It's unsettling, to say the least.
So let me describe this to our listeners who maybe haven't seen it. Okay, so this is the last known footage of Elisa before she vanished, right? So the video starts, she steps into the elevator. Everything seems normal enough at first.
Yeah.
But then she starts pressing all the buttons, like all the floor buttons.
Up and down, yeah.
And then she's peeking out into the hallway.
Like hiding from someone.
It's almost like she's trying to hide from someone, like she's looking to see if anyone's out there. And then she steps out of the elevator, but the doors stay open.
Yeah.
She comes back in, the doors still won't close. It's like the elevator itself is malfunctioning.
Yeah, like it's adding to the strangeness.
And Elisa's movements are just, she's pacing, she's fidgeting, she's gesturing with her hands. And eventually she leaves the elevator with the doors wide open. And that's it.
And she's never seen alive again.
It's bizarre. It's truly bizarre.
And it just leaves you with so many questions. Like, what is going through her mind at that moment? What is she reacting to?
Is she having some sort of psychotic episode? Maybe brought on by, not taking her medication?
Could be.
Is she being pursued by someone that we can't see in the video?
It's possible, right?
And then you have all these theories that have sprung up about the video itself.
Yeah.
Was it tampered with?
The timestamp was obscured.
Was the footage slowed down?
Are there missing sections?
It's like people are looking for those little details that add, I guess, fuel to the fire.
Fuel to the mystery.
Right. And so just when you think the case can't get any weirder, it does.
Oh, yeah.
Because guests at the Cecil Hotel start complaining about the water.
The water.
Yeah, they're saying it has low pressure, it's discolored.
And it has a weird taste.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it's like something out of a horror movie.
It is. And, that's when things take a really dark turn.
Oh, absolutely.
Because on February 19th, a maintenance worker goes up to check those rooftop water tanks. And he makes a horrifying discovery. Elisa's body, naked, is found floating in one of the tanks. It's a chilling discovery.
Yeah.
To say the least. And you immediately have to wonder, how did she even get up there? We're talking about the roof of a hotel.
Right. Access is usually pretty tightly controlled.
Yeah, for safety reasons.
Absolutely. I mean, the roof of the Cecil had locked doors. There were alarms.
Passcodes.
Yeah, even passcodes required to get through. It wasn't a place you could just, easily wander onto.
So how did she end up in that water tank? Could someone have forced their way up there and put her there?
Well, that's one of the big questions that has, fueled so much speculation around this case.
Right.
Some people point to the Cecil's history. I mean, it's had its share of dark incidents over the years. Suicides, murders.
Connections to serial killers.
Yeah, it's like the hotel itself has this, aura of mystery and darkness surrounding it.
And that definitely feeds into the theories about foul play, right?
It does.
Could Elisa have been a victim of something sinister happening within those walls?
It's a possibility that some people consider. However, the autopsy report doesn't offer much support for that theory.
Okay, so let's talk about the autopsy. What did it reveal about Elisa's cause of death?
The official cause of death was ruled as accidental drowning with bipolar disorder, listed as a significant contributing factor.
So they're saying that her mental state played a role in her death.
That's the conclusion they reached. Yeah, the autopsy found no evidence of physical trauma, sexual assault.
Nothing indicating foul play?
No, nothing like that. They did find clothing, similar to what Elisa was wearing in the elevator video, floating in the tank along with her watch and room key.
Okay, but how does someone accidentally drown in a rooftop water tank? I mean, it just seems so improbable.
It's certainly an unusual situation, but remember, we're talking about someone who might have been experiencing a psychotic episode, potentially exacerbated by inconsistent medication. It's possible that in her altered state of mind, she wandered onto the roof, maybe seeking refuge.
Or experiencing some kind of delusion.
Exactly, and somehow ended up in the tank.
That's where I get stuck. I can maybe wrap my head around the idea of her getting onto the roof somehow, but those water tanks are massive. They're not easy to access.
No.
And the lids are incredibly heavy.
You're right. The mechanics of how she got into the tank are a major sticking point for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Some have suggested that she might have climbed onto the tank for some reason and then slipped and fell in. Others have proposed that maybe the lids weren't properly secured and she accidentally fell through an opening.
But wouldn't someone have noticed if the lids were loose or open?
You'd think so, but the maintenance records weren't entirely clear on that point. And remember, this is the Cecil Hotel, not exactly known for its, top-notch maintenance.
Okay, fair point.
Yeah.
So we have this official ruling of accidental drowning, but even with that conclusion, there are all these nagging questions.
Lingering doubts.
Yeah, like how did she get onto the roof in the first place? The security measures are supposed to be pretty tight.
Right, and that's where the fire escape comes into play. It could have provided a way to bypass those locked doors and alarms.
Oh, interesting.
Interestingly enough, her scent trail was actually lost near a window connected to the fire escape.
So it's possible she went up the fire escape, but then wouldn't she have had to go through another door to get to the roof?
Not necessarily. A video surfaced online later showing that the roof was actually accessible through a window connected to the fire escape. And get this, the video also showed that some of the water tank lids were open.
Whoa, wait a minute. Open water tank lids.
Yeah.
That changes things significantly.
It does.
Suddenly the idea of her accidentally falling into one of the tanks becomes a lot more plausible.
More plausible.
Right.
And that detail wasn't widely known until after the official investigation had concluded.
Makes you wonder if things might have played out differently had that information been available sooner.
It's hard to say for sure, but it definitely would have been, a crucial piece of the puzzle.
Okay, so we've got this possible route to the roof, and we know that at least some of the tank lids were open, but there's still the issue of the toxicology report.
Right.
It showed traces of her prescribed medications, but the levels were lower than expected, suggesting she might have been under-medicating or had stopped taking them altogether.
That's another layer of complexity that we can't ignore.
No.
If Elisa wasn't taking her medication consistently, her mental state could have been highly unpredictable.
Yeah.
Imagine the mood swings, the potential for delusions, the difficulty distinguishing reality from fantasy.
It's a frightening thought.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder if her behavior in the elevator, the button pressing, the hiding the erratic movements, could have been manifestations of a psychotic episode.
It's a possibility that aligns with the accidental drowning theory. But even with all this information, there are still people who believe that something more sinister might have happened.
Like what specifically?
While some believe that the elevator video shows signs of tampering, they point to the obscured timestamp, the potentially slowed down footage.
Missing sections.
Yeah, missing sections as evidence that something isn't quite right.
It's like they're saying the video we see isn't the full story, that something might have been edited out or manipulated to hide what really happened.
Exactly. And those claims have led to some pretty wild theories. Some people believe that Elisa might have been a victim of foul play and that the video was altered to cover up a crime.
Okay, but if that's the case, who would have tampered with the video and why? And wouldn't there be some evidence of a struggle or foul play on her body?
Those are the questions that these theories struggle to answer convincingly.
Yeah.
Remember, the autopsy didn't find any signs of physical trauma or anything suggesting a struggle.
So if we're sticking to the evidence, the accidental drowning theory seems to be the most plausible explanation. But even with that, there's still so many unanswered questions. It's like we're looking at a puzzle with some pieces missing, and we're left to fill in the gaps with our own interpretations.
That's exactly what makes this case so fascinating and frustrating at the same time. We have this official ruling, but it doesn't fully satisfy our desire for a complete and definitive answer, and that ambiguity is what has kept people speculating and debating for years.
And then, of course, you have the whole internet effect.
Oh, yeah.
This case went viral, and people all over the world became armchair detectives.
Absolutely.
Analyzing every detail, proposing theories, sharing their opinions online. It's almost like the case took on a life of its own outside of the official investigation.
It definitely did. The Elisa Lam case became a prime example of how the internet can both amplify a mystery and sometimes muddy the waters with misinformation.
Right.
Remember, the toxicology report ruled out drug use, but online, that didn't stop people from speculating that she was under the influence of something.
It's a reminder that we have to be careful about what we read and believe online, especially when it comes to cases like this.
Absolutely. And it's important to distinguish between genuine attempts to understand the case and those who might be exploiting the tragedy for clicks or attention.
So we have this official ruling of accidental drowning, but it doesn't quite quell the public's fascination with the case.
No.
People are still searching for answers, still debating the evidence, and still trying to make sense of what happened to Elisa Lam.
And that's where the lawsuit comes in. Elisa's family, understandably seeking answers and accountability, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the Cecil Hotel.
Okay, so what was their argument? What did they believe the hotel did wrong?
They claimed that the hotel was negligent in failing to address potential hazards, specifically the unsecure access to the rooftop and the water tanks. They argued that the hotel could have prevented Elisa's death if they had taken proper security measures.
So they're saying that Elisa's death was preventable, that the hotel had a responsibility to ensure the safety of its guests, and that they failed to do so.
Exactly. They believe that the hotel's negligence directly contributed to Elisa's death.
And how did the hotel respond to those allegations?
The hotel countered by saying they couldn't have reasonably foreseen that someone would enter the water tanks. They argued that it was an unpredictable event, and since it was unclear how Elisa got in there, they couldn't be held liable.
So they're basically saying, we didn't know someone could get into the tanks, and even if they could, we couldn't have known that someone would.
That was their defense, yeah. They claimed they had taken reasonable security measures, and they couldn't be held responsible for an unforeseen and unusual event like this.
It's a tough situation. On the one hand, you have a grieving family who believes their daughter's death could have been prevented. On the other hand, you have a hotel arguing that they couldn't have predicted or prevented such a unique and improbable event.
And the legal system had to weigh those arguments and determine whether the hotel's actions or lack thereof met the legal definition of negligence.
So what was the outcome of the lawsuit? Did the court side with Elisa's family or with the hotel?
After a lengthy legal battle, the lawsuit was eventually dismissed.
Wow. So even with legal action, there was no definitive answer, no closure for Elisa's family.
Unfortunately not. The circumstances surrounding Elisa Lam's death remain shrouded in mystery and speculation, and the legal system couldn't provide the answers or accountability that her family was seeking.
It's a tragic reminder that sometimes even with thorough investigations and legal proceedings, certain questions remain unanswered.
It is, and while the legal battle might be over, the public's fascination with the Elisa Lam case shows no signs of fading. Her story has permeated popular culture, inspiring documentaries, TV shows, films, even music.
Yeah, it's like her case has become a modern-day urban legend, captivating audiences and prompting them to grapple with the unknown.
Absolutely. And one notable example is the episode Watershed in the TV series Castle.
Oh, yeah.
It features a plot that closely mirrors Elisa's case, with a young woman found dead in a rooftop water tank and eerie elevator footage playing a central role in the investigation. Another show, How to Get Away with Murder, also incorporated a similar storyline, with a missing sorority girl's body being discovered in a water tank on the roof of the sorority house.
So these shows are using the basic premise of Elisa's case, but creating fictional narratives around it.
Exactly. They're drawing on the intrigue and mystery of the real-life event to craft compelling stories exploring themes of isolation, mental health, and the dark side of urban environments.
And it goes beyond television. I mean, the 2020 horror film Followed Directly incorporates the elevator footage of Elisa Lam into its narrative, further blurring the lines between fiction and reality.
Right, and that film even attempts to explain Elisa's behavior in the elevator as her playing the Korean elevator game, a ritual rumored to summon ghosts.
Wow, that's a pretty eerie connection.
Yeah.
So her story is being woven into both fictional narratives and in some cases even supernatural explanations. It's like her case has become this blank canvas onto which people project their own interpretations and anxieties.
Exactly, and that's one of the things that makes the Elisa Lam case so enduringly fascinating. It taps into our primal fear of the unknown, our desire for answers, and our fascination with the dark side of human experience. It's a story that continues to resonate with audiences, prompting them to question, analyze, and speculate about the nature of truth, mystery, and the fragile line between sanity and madness.
It's a reminder that some stories, even those with seemingly straightforward conclusions, can continue to haunt us,
Yeah.
challenge our perceptions, and inspire a myriad of interpretations.
It is, and the Elisa Lam case, with its unanswered questions, unsettling details, and haunting imagery, is a prime example of a story that refuses to be neatly categorized or easily forgotten.
It's a story that continues to evolve and take on new meaning as we grapple with its complexities and search for understanding. We'll be back in a moment to wrap up our deep dive into the Elisa Lam case and reflect on what we've learned and the questions that remain. Welcome back. So we've really gone through a lot with this case, haven't we? We've looked at the evidence, the theories, the way this case is seeped into pop culture.
And yet it feels like we're still left with that central question, How did Elisa Lam end up in that water tank?
Exactly.
Was it a tragic accident, fueled by her mental state?
Or is there more?
Yeah, is there something more
That we just haven't discovered?
that we're missing?
Yeah, and I think that's part of what makes this case so compelling, is that it challenges us to think critically, right?
Yeah.
It challenges us to question what we think we know and to acknowledge that even with all of these, the investigations, the official rulings, there's still a lot of ambiguity.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, mysteries can persist sometimes.
Yeah, and I almost think that this story is kind of like a reflection of, the human condition itself.
How so?
Well, we're constantly searching for answers, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to make sense of the world around us, but sometimes those answers elude us, and we end up with even more questions than we started with.
We do. I think you've hit on something really profound there, this case. It's not just about, Elisa Lam's death. It's about our own relationship with the unknown. It's about our fascination with darker aspects of human nature and our need to understand even when things are ambiguous.
And I think maybe that's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe the journey is more important than the destination in this case.
I agree.
It's about that process of exploration, right?
Piecing together the fragments.
Yeah, piecing together the information and maybe coming to terms with the fact that some questions may never have definitive answers.
That's true. And sometimes that can be a really difficult thing to accept.
It can be, but I like that perspective,
Yeah.
because it takes the focus off of this need for resolution, for a neat ending, and it allows us to kind of embrace the mystery of it all, you know,
Yeah.
and to recognize that the unknown can be a powerful catalyst for, I don't know, growth introspection even.
Absolutely. And I think in Elisa Lam's case, it reminds us that, behind the headlines, behind all the speculation, there's a human story.
There is.
There's a life that was lived and a mystery that, continues to resonate with us, even though it's been years since she died.
It has. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious to hear from you, our listener.
Yeah.
What resonates with you about Elisa's story? What questions are you left with? And what do you think this story tells us about ourselves, about our relationship with the world, and about the power of mystery?
It's a story that stays with you.
It does. So
Yeah.
we encourage you to keep exploring. Research this case more, share your own thoughts, and until next time, keep questioning, stay curious, and remember sometimes about the profound answers. They lie not in solving the mystery, but in exploring it.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us. Tell us what you think about this episode. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.